1, 2, 3, this is a check. 1, 2, 3, this is a check. Hey internet, I'm Mr. Patrick Bueno, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to create your rendition of this 3D sphere with Photoshop. This video is catered towards my freshman high school level Principles of Arts AV Technology and Communications class. My freshmen have not looked at Photoshop yet, so this is kind of an introduction into Photoshop. This is a great beginner level tutorial if you've never used Photoshop. I'm going to walk you through how to get set up and then how to start using reference images to create some digital paintings. All right, let's go. I found this little 3D sphere image on the internet. Maybe you can go find something that is free use for you. But if you have access to this image, go ahead and download it. It'll be in your downloads folder, and then we can open up Photoshop. I'm going to hit this new file button here at the top of Photoshop. And we kind of want to make a custom canvas. So this is going to be like the canvas size that you're going to work in with Photoshop. For me, I like working in 24 by 18. So the width of 24 inches and the height of 18, kind of like a landscape orientation with a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. This will give you like a really big poster board size, and it's a good starting point because you can always scale it down without losing resolution. However, if you were to start this image a lot smaller, say by like 7 by 5 inches, and later on you wanted to print like a big poster board, you would lose that resolution later on. So it's always good to start big and small than it is to start small and big. So I'm going to name this 20.2 and then my name, Mr. Bueno. Let's go ahead and hit create. Perfect. We have a white blank canvas in Photoshop. To get kind of like familiar with what you're looking at, something that's super important and a way to organize your projects is over here in the layers panel. So right now we have a locked background layer. So right off the bat, I want to create a new layer just so that I can begin working in this layer and we can leave that background alone. We don't really want to do anything with the background. It's just there just to give you your blank canvas. Let's actually on this layer import our photo. That way we have our reference right here within our project. The easiest way is to go in Finder, find your picture, and I'm just going to click and drag it into our project here. There we have our 3D sphere on that first layer that we created. I like it where it's at. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm actually going to lock it too. That way we don't accidentally move it. And then I am going to right off the bat create our background. So our background is this like middle gray. So I'm going to use this rectangle tool here on the left. It's a rectangle, and I am going to change the fill of it. So you have all these options on how you want to create your rectangle up here at the top. I'm going to change the fill, click on this little palette, and actually you can pick any color that you want your rectangle to be. If I was going to use this as our reference, then I want this gray. And so you can kind of see if you're in the color picker, you can pick all these different colors here, or if you go over into your project, you get this little eyedropper tool. I'm going to click on this color right here, and it's going to make a rectangle that's exactly the color within our reference image. So I'm gonna hit OK, and now I'm just gonna make my rectangle. Click and drag from one corner to the other corner, and voila, now we have our background. We can't see our sphere anymore unless you turn off one of these eyes in the layer panel. So hit the eye, and now we can see our reference. We can actually bring this on top of our rectangle, move your reference image above different things depending on when you want to see your reference image, or simply turn off your eye. Next, we need to create our circle that we're then going to paint some light onto. I am going to click and hold this rectangle tool, and you get a whole lot of different options on all these tools actually. So you have your type tool, you got your pen tool, you have so many options if you just click and hold. I'm going to click and hold this rectangle. I'm going to go to the ellipse tool, and I'm going to make an ellipse that's about the size of the circle. Bam. Okay, so an ellipse tool allows you to create ovals, it allows you to create circles. If you hold shift, it'll lock the dimensions to a perfect circle. So actually I am going to do something like this, and I'm going to switch back to this move tool up here at the top. That way I can move and place my circle right on top of that sphere. And we can actually size it up just perfectly to hit our sphere. Perfect. If I turn that off, there we have that, there we have this. I want to change my sphere to white. So you can see over here under appearance, we have the ellipse selected, we have the fill. I'm just gonna change this to all white. Let me turn off the reference. Let me turn on the rectangle, and actually let me move my sphere on top of the rectangle. You know what we can do is we can actually group these two layers. That way we have an easy way to toggle them all off so we can look at our reference. So by clicking one and holding shift and selecting the other, I'm going to right click and I am going to select new group from layers, and I'm going to name this sphere. I'm going to name it my sphere. My sphere. Hit OK. And then now everything is in a group under my sphere, and we can turn off that group and we can see our reference image. So let's see what we want to do first. We want to paint on the shadows. That's exactly what we want to do. So we want to be able to lock our pixels on our ellipse so that when we brush over this circle, we only paint within the pixels of this sphere. However, right now, this ellipse, it doesn't have any pixels. What it is a vector object. And so what a vector object does is it uses pinpoints and it uses curves to calculate different shapes. You use vector objects for logos because logos can scale up to many different sizes when it comes to companies using logos for different mediums, different screens, different use cases. And so you don't really want to guess like, hey, let me use a 24 by 18 inch logo because later on maybe they need it to go on a billboard in downtown New York, or maybe they want to use it for a commercial that's going to be for IMAX theater, which are totally much larger resolutions. So you use vector objects to calculate these different images. And so right now our ellipse is currently a vector object. That's what this symbol means right here down on the layer. And so if you were to downscale it and you hit done and then you upscale it, there is no resolution lost within this sphere. It's exactly how it should look, no matter what size that it is. I'm hitting undo to get back to where I was, Command Z to get me back where I was. So we want to rasterize this so that we can manipulate the pixels and so we can start painting over the top of this sphere. And actually, if you were to try to start painting on top of this, we want to hit B for brush, which is this tool over here. If you hover over the brush tool, you'll get brush tool, which is also a hotkey you can hit is for B. If you go to your brush tool and you try to start painting over the top, you're going to get this warning. It's going to say this shape layer must be rasterized before proceeding. And then it asks you, do you want to rasterize the shape? You can hit OK, or you can just hit cancel. We're going to right click over here on the ellipse. We're going to rasterize the layer. And you see it took away this little vector shape. And now we're working with pixels. Just to see kind of what the difference is between vector shapes and rasters is if you were to scale this shape down and you hit done and then you scale it all the way up, you begin to see the resolution that was lost when we scaled it down because you're working with pixels. And so you can't ever come back from a scaled down shape. You just can't add the pixels back when it comes to a raster, but you can for vector shapes. So you hit done, you can still see these pixels are they're visible. Up here, you have this history panel. If you click on that, you can go back in time to before you rasterize the shape. And then we just want to rasterize it to make sure we're good to go. Sweet. So if you now go to the brush tool and let's say we have our opacity at 100, you can start painting over the top of your ellipse because you're working only in this ellipse layer. You can't paint over this rectangle because it is still a vector shape. This is looking nothing like this. So what we want to do is we can go back to the raster layer. We want to click on our ellipse layer and lock these pixels in. And what that allows us to do is now if we start painting, it's only allowing us to paint within this ellipse circle, which is pretty neat. And now we have a black circle and not really a sphere. So let me Command Z to undo that. Command Z one more time. Command Z one more time. Right now we have the brush tool on. We have these options up here. We have our normal blending mode, which we'll leave it that alone. We have our opacity set to 100, some flow to 100, some smoothing to 100. And then also if you right click with the brush tool, you can size your brush down, Command Z, or you can affect the hardness, 100 hardness, and then set it to 0. And now you get like a little bit softer brush. Versus 100% hardness. So what we definitely want, because we're working with light, is we want a hardness set to 0. That way we get a little bit more of a blur effect. But also we want a really low opacity. So we actually want an opacity at like, let's say 10. Our brush is still set to true black. So if you see over here, this is the color of our brush. We have it at true black, but because we lowered the opacity, when you paint over the top, we actually get a gray. And let me undo. I'm actually gonna size my brush up, which you can use with these brackets here on the keyboard. You can go up, you can go down. I'm gonna click on my mouse and hold it until I've painted everywhere where I want this gray to land. I don't want to let go of the mouse just yet until I am ready to go. Sweet. All right, I lifted it up and I want to add another layer of 10 opacity gray right around here to start giving this lighting effect on our circle. I'm going to lower down, do one more pass, and I'm actually getting pretty close each time to the rim that I kind of want to stay away from, just to give different value sections. That one messed up. I'm going to hit Command Z. Command Z. I didn't like that one. There we go. That was good. Right there. Let go. Boom. Bam. And then keep going until you have a nice little transition between your lightest parts of your sphere and the darkest parts. So I just realized I had auto-tune on my mic, so my bad. I didn't mean to have that on, so that's off. Sorry about that. Let's check our reference. And actually at this point, there's a couple things I want to see about the reference. Other than that, I'm through with the reference. The reference is there to get us started. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? This is art, so you want to use these references as like bumpers at a bowling alley. You want to just have them there to help you get started, but now it's time for you to start putting your own spin on things, all right? So the main things that I'm looking at here is we definitely need to add the shadow coming up soon. We do have this highlight right here on our sphere, so I want to add like this highlight thing going on. And then maybe I also want to consider that if the light's coming from this side, it's hitting the ground and it's bouncing up underneath our sphere, so we have a little bit of reflection light on the bottom of our circle. Those are the only things I want to care about. I'm done looking at the reference until it gets time to look at the shadows. I want to make sure we have a highlight here, and then I want to make sure we have some reflective light. Other than that, I'm done with the reference. So let's kind of do our own thing here with our sphere. I'm just going to keep painting it. I know like this side, because if I hit a new layer, this is where our light is coming in. Oh, that's such an ugly arrow. Boom, bam, bop. Cool. All right, this is where our light's coming in. So I just want that there to show me and to show you guys what my mind's wrapping itself around. Let me go back to the ellipse, go back to the brush, open it up. Let me get an opacity of about 5. And we'll go like, yeah, we'll go 5. Big brush, packet black, and then hardness at 0. So we can start painting a little bit more. Get some real big shadow on this side. Maybe even under here. Maybe we can bring the gray around this side because our highlight's going to be right where we're kind of making it already up here. Have fun with it. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's art. Cool. Okay, so this is kind of like, I'm starting to overdo it, so I kind of want to back away, except for right here. This is going to be the blackest part of our sphere. There's 2 ways we can add highlight back in. We could go to the eraser tool, and just like the brush tool, we have the opacity, we have smoothing, flow, we have hardness if we right click onto our eraser. So we can use our eraser to kind of erase where we have a little bit too much. Like that's if that's already given us our highlight. At 100 opacity, you get the eraser tool and you hit it like that. That's kind of neat. However, I kind of want to do something a little different. You could use the eraser, or you could keep using the brush and just change from black to white by hitting this little anchor point here. You can have 2 colors here. So actually we can change one of those colors to red, and then now you're switching back from red to black with this little switcher. I'm just going to keep that at white. And the hotkey for that is actually X. If you hit X, you can switch between black and white. So for a little bit more of a speed, and then to keep your opacity the same, I'm going to use the X to switch back and forth between white and black. And I am going to put our highlight right here like this. What I'm going to do is a bunch of speed rounds of clicking and then also making the brush big and small. So check this out. I'm going to click, 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 open it up, click, open it up, click, 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 click. And now we're getting this weird like rainbow effect. Hardness was at 0. And I think that's all I kind of want to do, because now we're starting to see the brush strokes, which is adding some character, it's adding some flavor, but maybe it's a little too much. I kind of overdid it with the white, so I'm going to use the history panel, which is right here, and I'm going to go back in time. There we go. I think we don't need all of that much. Let me make it bigger. Click, 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 click. I think that's good enough. And then also I'm going to spread it around to kind of blend it in. All right, that's a little bit better. I like that. I'm happy with that. Let's back away a little bit on the gray, the dark gray on this side of the sphere. And then even down here, let's add some gray back versus the really harsh shadow. There we go. Okay. And then to bring back some of that reflective light, we'll color in right down here. There we go. Anything else, and I'm kind of just like overdoing it. Hit X, bring back some more gray, all the way around, kind of like this. And I think we're good. I think I'm happy with this. Sometimes you really gotta like pull yourself out of what you're doing. Zoom out, and that looks pretty good to me. That's like a 3D sphere. It's easy to overdo it sometimes. Hit X. Yep, I'm happy with that. That looks good. I'm zooming out by hitting Option, and I'm using my scroll wheel. You can also use space to click and move around if you wanted to zoom in and do some really detailed stuff. You can zoom in and then hold space to kind of move yourself around. But look at that texture with those brush strokes. That's pretty neat. And then to kind of jump yourself out, we want to hit Command 0. And now we're kind of like back to our full thing. Let me turn off my arrow. I'm going to hit the I to take it off, or I can click and drag it down to the trash can to delete it, or I can just click on the layer and then hit backspace and it's gone. Next, we want to do the shadow. So for the shadow part, if we look at our reference, it's another ellipse. So let's turn this back on, grab the ellipse tool, and then we don't want to hold shift this time because then it'll make a perfect circle. We want to let it go and kind of just create something like this. Bam. And it's white, so we want to change the fill. You can change the fill up here, or depending on your version of Photoshop, you can change it right here. Hit black. Let's look at it. It's really not true black, so let's actually change it to like a little bit more of a gray. Something like here. Dark gray. And then it kind of has like a blur to it. So first of all, let's make it a little smaller. Let's go back to our move tool, move it around. And it's sitting on top of our sphere, so we want to move the layer down underneath it. And now we're getting, that looks pretty much like the right size and area. Cool. It is still a vector shape. If we go here up at the top, let me turn me off. If you go up to the top here on Photoshop, you can do filter. And with the ellipse layer selected, you want to go to blur and then Gaussian blur. You're going to get this warning. This shape layer must be rasterized or converted to a smart object before proceeding. If rasterized, it will no longer be editable as a shape because you are turning it into pixels. The difference between a smart object and a rasterized layer is that the rasterized layer will turn into pixels. If we convert it to a smart object, we can then blur it out. So check out the shape. We're blurring it out, giving it like the shadow effect. What's really cool about smart objects is it's a non-destructive way to edit things. So you can still change the shape of smart filters applied to this layer will be turned off temporarily while the transform is being previewed. They will be applied after committing the transform. So you can go back and you can transform your shape, make it bigger, hit done, and then the filter will then be applied back on. So it's a really good way to say if this was too much blur, you can double click here on the layers and you can kind of trim down. So it's a smart object, so it's not committed to pixels, but it's not a vector anymore because I don't know if it's a vector. Let's look that up. Photoshop. Yes, smart objects in Photoshop can retain their vector properties, specifically when imported from Illustrator or created from shape layers. So yeah, we created this from a shape layer. We turned it into a smart object, so it still retains their vector properties. Good to know. So that's the difference between smart objects and rasters. Smart objects still maintain their vector shapes, so you can still manipulate them. And then once you're done manipulating them, it'll reapply the filters that you've set. I'm gonna hit OK, and I'm actually gonna go up to my history panel and go back a little bit, layer visibility, Gaussian blur, and just check out the reference. If you wanted to, because you have some darker areas and some gray, you can do the same thing on the shadow. Maybe actually this is a little bit too blurred out. That's perfect. Hit OK. Now that we're happy with our shadow, right click on it. Let's rasterize it. And then on this ellipse, let's lock the pixels. And then let's do the same thing we did for the sphere. Go to our brush tool. Let's trim this down. We want it to be on black. And then just set our opacity to 5 is fine. And then let's just make it a little darker in some areas. Where the darkest areas in the middle. Let's make it like 20. Bring it down. There we get a little bit of texture in the shadows. And then let's actually lighten it up. Hit X, go to the white. Let's lighten the edges a bit. Too much opacity. 8's good. Command Z. If you make your brush like pretty big and you're like, I'm painting on the outside of it and it's still doing stuff because it's like a feathered brush, like because the hardness is so low. Okay, there we go. Let me go down opacity like to 2, 3, bam, just color the whole thing. Color the whole thing, blend it a little bit, blend it a little bit, blend it a little bit, and then switch it. Same thing. Make this area darker. And now we have a cool little texture. Bam, I am happy with that. That looks pretty solid to me. Look at that. If you zoom it out, it even looks pretty good. That is my 3D sphere. Whenever you're done with this, you can save it as a JPEG. So I am going to hit, and let me hide me. Let's go ahead and hit File. Let's hit Save As. And first of all, you want to save your Photoshop file. So I'm going to save it under Lessons, new folder. Do Photoshop. Toots for tutorials. 20.2 Mr. Bueno Photoshop. So I'm going to save the Photoshop file. Hit OK. That way, whenever I close this project down, I can open it back up whenever I want. And I am going to hit File, Export As, and we want to export it as a JPEG. So you can do PNG, JPEG, GIF. Quality, this is pretty big. This pixel size, I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit. Do like 50% of the pixels. That's pretty good. I'm gonna hit export and then just save it where you want it to go. I would never recommend saving it to downloads, but for my sake, I'm just gonna save it to downloads. Export, allow. And there we go, downloads. Here it is. There's my 3D sphere. That looks pretty solid to me. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Hopefully it wasn't too long. Hopefully you learned something. If you did learn something, please like and subscribe to the channel. Awesome. All right, I'll see y'all in class. Bye.